Hey gang, and welcome back. These videos are brought to you by Card Conduit, the best place to sell your unused collection fast and easily. 401 Games, Canada's top shop for all your hobby and TCG needs. Dragon Shield, the strongest sleeves for your strongest decks. Moxfield, the easiest way to store and share your deck lists. Charles wins the die roll and starts us off. He draws and plays a swamp. Fred's got a forest. Corwin plays an overgrown tomb tapped and passes. Jazz, new to the channel, follows Corwin's example, playing a tapped Sacred Foundry. Charles draws and plays a Mana Confluence, and then casts Explore, losing 1. He plays a Mountain as his second land drop, and passes. Fred's got a Hinterland Harbor for turn, and pays 2 for Lightning Greaves. Corwin plays Spectator Seating, and then foretells a card and passes. Jazz plays a Crag Crown Pathway, and also foretells a card, shipping it after that. Charles plays a Forest, and then pays 2 for Night's Whisper, losing 2 and drawing 2. Fred's got a Command Tower, and casts Bloom Tender. He moves the Greaves onto the Bloom Tender, and passes. Corwin just plays an Exotic Orchard and casts his first Spider of the game with a Taurian Mauler. Jazz has got a Mountain and casts Valakut Awakening. This gives a counter to the Mauler, and he then bottoms 2 to draw 3 cards. Charles has got a Swamp and casts Skyshroud Claim. He gets a Forest and a Stomping Ground and passes. Fred just plays a Hollowed Fountain untapped, taking 2, and casts Ms. Bumbleflower. Corwin plays a Bountiful Promenade as his land for turn, and then casts a Realm Walker. He names Slivers, which isn't spiders, and passes. Jazz draws and plays a Forest, paying 2 for Sword of the Anime. Charles' turn has a Forest, and he casts Wound Reflection. Fred's got an island for turn, swinging Miss Bumbleflower at Jazz for 1. He takes the hit, and Fred then passes, with Wound Reflection dealing another 1 to Jazz during the end step. Corwin's got a Temple Garden, which comes in tapped, and casts Irregular Cohort. Fred responds to this with a Reprieve, and lets Jazz draw off the Bumbleflower trigger, and has her put a +1/+1 counter onto herself, and the Taurian Mauler gets another counter. Corwin then puts the Cohort back into his hand, and sends the Taurian Mauler at Fred. Fred responds again with a Swords to Plowshares, and targets the Mauler. This time around he lets Charles draw a card, and he puts another counter onto Bumbleflower and draws 2 himself. Corwin also gets to add another counter to the Mauler, and is then exiled, with Corwin gaining some life and passing turn. Jazz draws, plays a Canopy Vista, and then brings out Cloud ex-Soldier. As he comes in, he gets to equip the Sword of the Animist onto him, and he sends him at Corwin. Jazz gets to draw a card when he attacks thanks to Cloud being equipped, and he gets to go and find a basic land. Corwin then takes the hit for 5, and Jazz passes. Charles' turn has him drawing, and then playing Birds of Paradise. He then plays Pest Infestation on the Lightning Greaves, and the Sword of the Animist. This is Charles getting 4 Pest tokens, and passing. Fred's got a Sunpetal Grove, and casts Kian Corrupted Memory. He gives Corwin the draw with Bumbleflower, and gives her another +1/+1 counter, and then says Bumbleflower at Jazz. Before damage, Fred then casts Snap and targets Cloud, putting another counter onto Bumbleflower, and giving Corwin another draw, and drawing 2 himself. Jazz then takes 5. Fred then passes, and during the end step, Wound Reflection deals another 5 to Jazz. Corwin draws and casts a Mana Weft Sliver, and then replays the Irregular Cohort, making a token as it comes in. He ships it after that. Jazz plays a Wooded Foothills, and then casts Professional Facebreaker. He then casts Windcrag Siege, and as it comes in, chooses Mardu. He then cracks the Wooded Foothills, losing 1 and loses another 1 during his end step. Charles draws and casts a Goblin Arnarchomancer, which has Fred responding with View from above, targeting Bumbleflower. He gives Bumbleflower a +1/+1 counter, and gives Corwin a card, and the spell then resolves. Charles then continues by casting his commander with Xira Arien. Once more in response, Fred casts View from Above, and does the same trigger, drawing 2 cards for himself as well though, and View from Above goes back to his hand. After that, Charles just passes turn. Fred's got a Plains and casts Library of Leng. This has Fred giving Corwin the draw, and he continues to pump his commander. Fred then continues with a Fabro Elder, giving Corwin another card, drawing 2 more, pumping Bumbleflower, and giving her flying. Fred then sends his commander at Corwin, who takes the hit. Fred then passes, and during the end step, Wound Reflection hits Corwin for the same. Corwin's got an island, and then casts Farseek. Fred responds by flashing in a generous pup thanks to Kian, and gives Kian a +1/+1 counter, and has Jazz draw a card thanks to Bumbleflower. Once the pup resolves, Fred then casts Noxious Revival, targeting Snap, putting a counter onto the pup, and giving Jazz another card, plus drawing 2 for himself. With the pup getting a +1/+1 counter, it pumps the whole team as well, and Snap is then put on top of his library. This is all in response to a Farseek, so Corwin finally gets to go and find a watery grave. He then casts a Living Death, but mostly as a board wipe. Corwin holds priority, and casts Cosmic Intervention, which will have all the creatures he's about to sacrifice coming back at the end of turn. The Living Death resolves, swapping the boards for the graveyards, and Corwin passes with his creatures coming back at the end of turn. Jazz draws, playing Exotic Orchard, and casts Open the Armory. He goes to find a Sword of Fire and Ice, casts it, and passes. Charles draws and plays a Forest, and then casts a Mana Geyser. He gets 15 red mana, using 4 of it to cast a Repeated Reverberation. He then uses some of his floating mana for Dark Petition, and gets to copy it twice, with Spell Mastery active, gaining him 9 black mana, and tutoring for 3 cards. He continues by casting a Fire Emancipation, which has Fred responding to it by casting View from Above, targeting Realmwalker for fun. Charles then continues his turn with a Twinferno, picking the mode to copy the next spell, which is a Treacherous Terrain. This'll be lethal, which has Jazz responding with his Foretell card, casting Ultimate Magic Holy. Corwin and Fred are taken up because of the Treacherous Terrain and the Wound Reflection on the end step, and Jazz is spared an Untimely Fate. Charles then recasts his commander and passes. Jazz draws, plays a Rogue's Passage, and then recasts Cloud, and equips a Sword of Fire and Ice to him. He then casts Annie Joins Up, which as it enters, blasts Xira Arien with the trigger. Jazz then moves to combat, sending Cloud at Charles. He gets 4 of Cloud's triggers thanks to Annie Joins Up and the Wingcrag Siege, so he draws 4 on attack. Charles then takes the hit, and with Cloud connecting, Jazz gets 2 Sword of Fire and Ice triggers, drawing 2 more, and dealing 4 to Charles, and passes after that. Charles just draws, casts Farseek, and follows up with Toxic Deluge, paying 6 life to wipe the board, aka just Cloud. He passes after that. Jazz draws, and casts a Stoneforge Mystic, going into his library to grab Genji Glove. He then casts Cloud, and moves the sword onto him. Jazz once more moves to combat, swinging Cloud at Charles, drawing 4, and then dealing the damage, and drawing more of the sword triggers. After that, Jazz passes turn. Charles draws for turn, and it's Reforge the Soul, which he pays the Miracle cost for, which has the table discarding their hand and drawing a fresh 7. He then sacrifices a mountain to cycle Edge of Autumn, drawing a card, and plays a Swamp, and then casts Black Waltz number 3. He follows it with Chandra Hope's Beacon, which has the Black Waltz triggering, and Jazz takes 6. Once the Planewalker's out, Charles then downticks Chandra for 5, and targets Jazz and Stoneforge Mystic, and the damage is tripled to 15. Charles then moves to his end step, and Wound Reflection deals another 21 to Jazz to wrap up the game. Game review time. So I was a bit disappointed we didn't get to see Cosmic Spider-Man in action. I think the set is kinda neat, there's a lot of cool commanders, but unfortunately the general consensus seems to be that people are just not interested in the set. Otherwise I think Miss Bumbleflower did a fantastic job. And Cloud was certainly threatening the late game with all those double up effects between Annie and the Windcrag Siege. I do love the fact that Charles was able to take 2 players out with Treacherous Terrain and Wound Reflection, and it's always cool to see Jund Spellslingers. This video wouldn't be possible without the help from my sponsors, but it definitely wouldn't be possible without the help from you, the viewers, and my patrons. So I just want to say thank you for watching, and to remember, friends are just opponents you haven't eliminated yet.